Okay, very good. We're back in another video. I think we've been building up to this, well, almost climax of the videos, but no kidding, this probably is the most important video. So before we get into the actual FSA worksheet, I want to just give you a summary of what we've been doing so far. So we started out by creating a new file, which is taking the, let's call it big template with all the documents and selecting a profile which already pared down the file to, well, a smaller number of documents. Then we went through the optimized checklist, which again deleted a couple documents and some irrelevant procedures already. After that, we've imported a trial balance. We've done the mapping. And based on that trial balance, we then calculated the materiality, which is the step here. Based on the calculated materiality, we went into the financial statement worksheet for the first time, and we decided which areas are material, which ones are not material, and again, we used the optimizer to delete all the immaterial areas from our engagement file, making the file even smaller again and more specific to our particular client. Then we went through some more documents and checklists to help us identify all the relevant risks. We've recorded those risks. We had a look at the control environment. We've documented the controls. We tested the controls, and based on that, we've concluded the control risk. So I think that all bundles up to the next step, which is actually going back into the FSA and now kind of concluding on the risk of material misstatement per financial statement area, and then see how that drives the work programs and the actual field work that we will be doing. So this going to be probably the longest video. Hope you're ready for a ride. Okay, let me start by switching off and not showing the non-material items. This makes the FSA smaller, easier to use, easier to navigate right off the bat. So basically there's two ways how we can deal with work programs. Out of the box, Audit is configured to have, I would call it default procedures in a work program. And the concept for that is that a work program has around 25 procedures. The default number of procedures, let's say, is around 20. That's what's predefined in the template. And then based on the risk of material misstatement, the number of procedures becomes less or more. If you have a low risk of material misstatement, we will automatically delete procedures. If you have a high risk of material misstatement, we will insert procedures from the library into your work program, ending up with more. That's one option. That's how Audit is shipped out of the box. So if you don't change anything, that's what you get. And I will show you that example for PP&E and inventory. Later on, I will show you also another configuration that you can use for your work programs, and that's often referred to as a blank sheet approach. So instead of having default procedures in your work program, the work program is empty, has no procedures in it, and based on the risks that we have identified, procedures are automatically brought into the work program, and then based on the risk of material misstatement that we configure, additional procedures are brought into the work program. Now, the reason why many of our users like that is because it triggers more of a thinking audit. So we help you with some automation. We automatically bring in some procedures if needed, but at the same time it's also up to the user to think like which risks are really relevant for this financial statement area and which procedures do I need. Whereas with the, let's say, default procedure configuration, there's always this risk that people keep procedures in just because they are in the program, start performing them, but those procedures don't really give you more audit evidence or do not really address the critical issues, the significant risks for your engagement. Okay, so that's a very long introduction. Let's start out with the default procedures approach, which I have configured here in my property, plant and equipment. Well, for property, plant and equipment, I don't think we've done the control design matrix, so I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to assume my control design control risk is low. Now, going to my risk of material misstatement, I can now use this proposed, which will automatically calculate my risk of material misstatement, and that's based on business rules that I've set up in the profiles. If you want more, let's say, background on that, there's also a nice matrix in the IFAC guide. Basically, out of the box, we've configured audit to be on the cautious side. So if you have a high inherent risk and a medium control risk, we will give you the value high. If it's medium, we'll give you medium. And if it's high and low, I think we'll give you medium. As the risk of material misstatement. But again, that's configurable. You can make your decisions at the firm level, and you can also do that per profile. So you could have a different business rule for profile 1 and another business rule for profile 2, if that is what you would want. Okay. So that again is this proposed, the automatic population of your risk of material misstatement, and similar to what I've showed before in the inherent risk control risk, if you decide to overrule, you can do that by switching it here manually to another value. I'm going to switch that back to low. You might notice here that once I've done something manually, it will keep this overridden flag. So actually, if I want to change it to the value low, calculate it, I have to make it empty first, then run the proposed again. So that's a little trick, or just knowing exactly how it works and how we've configured this feature. Okay, now setting the risk of material misstatement to low and going into the work program, you will see that the optimizer will be running. It's now going through and taking that value, RMM is low, and modifying the work program accordingly. The first time that you open up a work program, it might take a little bit longer because it goes through all. Next time it will be slower. Now, going into the work program, again, we're greeted by this bubble indicating to us, hey, procedures have been deleted by the optimizer. Something has happened since the last time it was opened. So we find that very, very important that you are always notified when something has changed automatically in your file. Okay. Let's have a look at those procedures right away, and I can go in and say review my deleted procedures. It's a different view of the same work program, and if I now scroll further, I can look at my procedures, and here my additions, disposals, leases, it will say these procedures are now deleted by optimizer. And when I hover over it, I get the explanation. The procedure is deleted because the RMM is actually set to low, and this procedure is only going to be in the work program when it's medium or high. So this is the configuration out of the box for audit. If you don't like it, if you do not agree with that from a methodology point of view, this is also something that you can figure at the firm level. So you can go into your template, and for each procedure you can say this procedure should be deleted if the RMM is low or if it's medium. So that's completely customizable. This is just the default configuration that you get out of the box. Okay. If I scroll a little bit further here, this really goes back to that first optimizer checklist that we completed a couple of videos earlier, where we said that there are no component entities, no related parties. So based on that answer there, the optimizer has now also deleted this procedure. And again, it says here deleted by optimizer. And when I hover over it, okay, let me just make sure I get the right hover. Yep, it says document 400-2, which is the optimized checklist. It was really quick, but it actually said this procedure was answered with no. That's why this is now deleted. So we really want to make sure that you don't feel this is a black box. We want to make sure that you as the user feel in control of all the automation. The automation is there to support you, but you should really feel in control, that you know what is happening in your file and why. Okay, now if you have a procedure that's deleted by the optimizer and you don't agree with it, it's quite easy to undo that, I can just do a right click and say restore this procedure. So you will see it will switch from blue to black. Blue in case view terminology always is something that's not printed, that's hidden, that's only on screen. And now this procedure is restored. This value is also kept, so next time that I open up this work program, it will not try to delete this procedure again. That would be silly. I've now overruled this. I'm the accountant, I'm in charge, and I'm deciding that we should do this additions procedure. Also to show you, as a user, I can also delete a procedure. I could say, well, this procedure is not really relevant. I'm doing a right click and I'm deleting it manually. Yeah, I'm sure. If I do that, it will now say that it's deleted by this person on this date. You still get the warning from the optimizer, so you can see that, okay, the optimizer would have deleted it as well. But this is a big difference between something that's been deleted by a user and something that's been deleted by the automation in Audit. So as a reviewer, you can clearly see what is deleted by a person, what is professional judgment, and what is automation. Okay. I often get the question, what happens? Do all these procedures, these deleted procedures, stay in my work program? That's completely up to you. They will be in the work program as long as you are doing your work and interacting with it, working with the work program. When you archive your file, you will be prompted to also clean up your engagement file. Sorry, when you do, well, it's a combination of the year-end close and archiving, but let's say when you archive your file, you can run a cleanup, and that cleanup will actually purge these procedures from your engagement file. So then it's not clear, it doesn't show anymore that procedures were deleted. Some people are not really that comfortable with having these procedures still in the file, in the work program as being deleted. Okay, let me switch off my deleted procedure view, and now I can show you that actually the total of procedures is only 9, and I think when you had more of the procedures, it would be up to 25 or something. The other thing that I would like to show here is how can I insert a new procedure. So there's two ways to do that. I can insert a new procedure from the content library. So with Audit, you get this content library which always stores all procedures, and this will show all the procedures that are not currently in your work program, which also includes the procedures that have been deleted by the optimizer. So even if something is deleted, everything will still be in the library, and I can now still decide to bring this back into my work program. Click OK, and it will insert those procedures to my work program. There we go. That's a procedure that's already available in the library. The other thing that I can do is also do a right click and insert a new procedure. So just gonna click OK, and this will give me a completely blank procedure. So I can now say this is a new procedure created at what we call the engagement level. Okay, just hit save, and it will just look the exact same as any of the other procedures. In a similar way, I can also modify an existing procedure. So if I want to go in here, I just do a right click, choose modifiable, and I can go in and add some wording to this procedure. So that's all relatively easy, or quite easy, I think. What you might have also noticed is that some of these procedures are linked to a risk, and this is the risk PP&E value. Not sure if that's the risk. No, that's not the one we created manually. But I can double click on the risk, and then it opens up the risk dialog, and I see all the details. So it clearly shows to a user why is this procedure in the work program, why is it relevant to complete this one. For the procedure that I've just created at the engagement level, I can do a right click and I can choose the option link risks to a procedure, which would give me a view of all my risks, which is only one, and I can now link this risk to that procedure. So it's not only procedures that come from the library or that were already in the work program. I can just create a new procedure and also link that to a risk. Especially useful, I think, when you have this default procedure approach is the option to highlight procedures. And I would say this is especially handy for reviewers. So I can go to Document, choose Highlight, and I can now say, okay, show me all the procedures that have been inserted after I created this work program, after I opened this work program. And oh, it's a little bit, I think there's a bit of a graphics issue with my graphics card and the recording, but you can see here, highlight inserted procedures. This procedure now gets a big, well, what do we call it, outline around it, red outline saying this procedure has been inserted after, it's not a default, it was not one of the default procedures that has been inserted while I was doing my planning and tailoring. In a similar way, I can also highlight all the edited procedures and you will get this dotted line. Sorry about this, I think there's something, but you can see it starts here. There's something with the graphics not working correctly on my computer. But you can see that this has been an edited procedure and it will just highlight all your edited procedures. So as a reviewer, I would definitely look into those because those are the changes that were made on the default procedures. So the default procedure approach, let's call it that way, can be very efficient. If you say this is always our starting point, this is the work that we always do, then as a reviewer I'm also only going to review the changes because all those other default procedures I'm familiar with and I know what they do. Okay, let me just check my notes. Okay, if I scroll to the top here of my work program, and I kind of did not really explain this when we got in first, you see what we call a mini risk report. So all the risks that are linked to a specific area will be summarized here at the top of the work program. I think that's really useful. That also helps your team members to remember, okay, the whole reason why we're actually doing this work program is because these risks are linked to this area. What you might have also noticed is that we show the planning balance here at the top. So that's the planning balance and final balance for property, plant, and equipment. So you always know, well, and with the materiality, so hopefully the users can place that in context instead of just going into the procedures and just start completing them. Finally, some users get a bit nervous when they realize that you open a work program and the optimizer is running and doing some automation, making some changes in your work program. The idea that we have is that while you're in the planning stage and tailoring your work programs to the identified risks, the optimizer should run because you might be changing your RMM, you might be changing the relevant assertions, you might be inserting and deleting procedures. So everything is still kind of fluid and dynamic up until you reached, let's say, this is the work program that we will be performing for this particular area. When you get to the point that you say, okay, now it's final, I can use this lock. And I can actually lock my procedure from any customization. I just have to type in a password. Yep, and that means two things. It means the optimizer will not run anymore. So this is the work program, how it's supposed to be, and this is how it will stay. And also when I do a right click or when I go to the menu, users can no longer modify or delete procedures. So you might have seen that there's actually two options. One option will just lock everything. The other option will lock the existing procedures but still give the user the option to insert new procedures. Okay, when we go back to the FSA, I will show you another way, way to block the optimizer from running. So make sure that when you reach that final stage of your planning, this is how I want the team to perform the work program. I'm going to lock it and then you hand it over to the rest of your team. Okay, That was example 1. So we still got a lot, we got some other areas to go through. So that's property, plant and equipment. If I now go to inventory, let me just expand that. I'm just gonna complete my, let's keep it like this. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, well, out of the box, all the assertions are switched on for each FSA line item. But maybe I don't think these are all relevant. In general, I get two opinions from a lot of our clients. Some clients say, yes, we want to see all the assertions, and then through the high, medium, low, we control if the assertion is relevant or not. Another group of clients says, no, we want our people to go in and really specify which assertions are relevant for this financial statement area. Well, and this is just to show you that audit can do both. Let's say that for inventory, I'm only going to keep my valuation as the relevant assertion. You can see that all the other ones are collapsed. I'm going to say, well, it's high. My control risk, let's set that to high, and also my RMM is set to high. If I now go into my work program, you should see a couple of things. You should see that the procedures that are only linked to CEA will be deleted by the optimizer because those assertions are no longer relevant for inventory. At the same time, because my valuation is set to high, the RMM is set to high, you will see that additional procedures are added to this work program to address this that are tagged as these procedures are relevant when the RMM is set to high. So I go into the work program. The optimizer tells me again something has been modified. Let's switch on those review deleted procedures. And again, we're still in this default procedure approach. So out of the box, we have 20 procedures. And now you can see that all the procedures that are not addressing the valuation assertion have been deleted by the optimizer. So if I just hover over, it says procedure has no relevant assertions for this for this financial statement area. So quite a few procedures here have been deleted. Oh, maybe that's important to know as well. The linkage of which assertions are relevant for which procedure is something you can modify as well. You have to do that in the template, but you can just do a right click and then modify. If you think that this procedure, for example, is should not be linked to the assertion accuracy, you can just remove accuracy. Probably clear enough, but just to make sure, you can also add procedures to your template at the firm level. So, and then you can still decide if you want to go with the blank sheet approach or if you want to go with the default procedure approach. Okay, so you can see that those procedures have been deleted. If I now scroll to the bottom here, you will see that that was, well, let me scroll back, sorry. All the procedures are in group A, substantive procedures basic. But now, because the RSM has been set to high, procedures have been automatically inserted in group B, substantive procedures extended, and have been added to my work program. And here, substantive analytical procedures. So that's another another part of the optimizer. It can also bring in procedures if the RMM is set too high. Okay, I think that's all that I wanted to show for inventory. Let me just save this work program, go back to the FSA. I'm just gonna collapse inventory here, and let's now move on with receivables. Now, receivables has been configured as a blank sheet approach, which means that in the template the work program is was completely empty. What I've done so far is that we've identified risks in this engagement file, and we've copied those risks over from a risk library. And the great thing about that was that in the risk library, someone has already defined that if this risk is relevant, let's say the salesman's bonus, then these procedures should always be completed. Now, if I open my work program, and keep in mind this is a blank sheet, so the work program was empty by default, what will happen is that only those procedures that are linked to the identified risks will be in the work program. So if I scroll a little bit further, you can see that we have only 3 procedures here. Only the procedures that have been linked to either my salesman's bonus or my downturn in the economy. So right now, this is just an example, but my work program would have all the procedures that have been predefined to address these risks if valid or if applicable. Now, if I go back to the FSA, there's another thing that I would like to mention, and you can, well, my mouse ended up right on top of it. We have also a warning system built in for the assertions. So now, because I got those procedures linked to existence accuracy evaluation, those procedures are automatically inserted into the work program. But I have no procedures linked to completeness, so now I get this warning: completeness is not yet addressed in your work program. So I think this is a very important warning. I think it's more useful when you do a blank sheet approach, because then it's helping your staff to make sure that the procedure in the work program cover all the relevant assertions. It could also be relevant for for the other approach if maybe the user has deleted too many procedures manually by mistake. So then the warning is still there, you will get the same warning. It's just not as relevant. So, well, I think this is a very realistic scenario. So we got some risks identified. The procedures have been brought in because they were linked to those risks. But now if I just gonna run my RMM, well, this is on medium. I'm just going to overrule that and set everything to low. Hold on, I'm just going to do it like this. So let's say I'm setting all my RMM to low. If I now open up the work program, the optimizer will also run. And the optimizer will bring in all the procedures relevant for all the assertions. Because it's set to low, the procedures are linked to that assertion. So just by doing that, it will now populate or bring in all the other procedures that are relevant when this assertion is relevant and bring those into the work program. So theoretically, whether you go with a blank sheet approach or whether you go with the default procedure approach, you should end up with similar procedures. But the thing that is kind of distorting that is that many procedures cover multiple assertions. So that's why you might get more procedures than needed. If you as a firm go in and tweak that in more detail, then you probably are able to take more advantage of this blank sheet approach and of the assertions warning. Okay, so let me just have a look at my demo script. Okay, we've done that. Well, the other thing that I haven't explained yet is here what we can do with the audit response table. And let me close this work program again, go back to the FSA. Okay, I'm clicking my tab risk response and I'm switching on my risk response columns. So, and I have to say this is configurable. This is also an option. So you don't have to use this. This really depends on your firm methodology if you want to use this or not. But you can say, based on your RMM, you as the supervisor, manager, person managing the FSA, you're now going to select procedures based on their category. So A will be the substantive procedures basic, B is the substantive procedures extended, C substantive procedures analytical, and D is test of controls. So I could say, based on my RMM, well, for this assertion I'm going to do substantive, basic, and for this assertion I'm going to do substantive. Well, you know what? Let me just check all and then show you what happens. Now when I go into my work program here, the audit response table that's at the top of the work program is actually linked and populated from my FSA. Okay, thank you for that. And it will now say, okay, my overall RMM for these assertions is low. For A, I've said in my FSA, I've decided that we want to do procedure. I want the team to perform procedures in the group A, basic. That's fine, those are in, so that's consistent. In the FSA, I've also said I want the team to perform procedures in group B, substantive, extended. But this warning here is to warn me that no procedures in group B are in your work program. So if I just scroll further, we got AAA, and then we have the completion. So the warning is also a button. I can click on it and it will now show me all the procedures in group B, in category B, and I can easily pick a couple of procedures that I now want to add to my work program. So it's really up to you as a firm if you want to use this as well. It is available. If you don't like it that much, you can switch off the audit response table. I think it's a good overview. But this is one of those things where firms can have a different opinion, and it's up to you if you want to take advantage of this and use this or not. If you want to disable the detailed audit response, you can just go here. You will have to do this in a template and switch it off, and it will not show up in your work program. Now, finally, I would like to go back to my FSA, and when I've completed all my risk assessment and or if I want to my audit response, the final step in the workflow is to go here and to check off, to sign off to say my risk assessment has been completed. This will do a couple of things. This will block the optimizer from running as well, because now your risk assessment is complete. That means that also your work program should be completely tailored to how you want to use it, and the optimizer will not run anymore and will not, so you keep your decisions. In the event that now someone goes in and says, okay, well, this should be high, we get, first of all, we see that, hey, the control risk has been changed. Your RMM should be reviewed. Okay, thank you. So I'm reviewing my RMM and setting that to high as well. I now get this warning showing up here saying that my RMM, my risk assessment, has been modified after my sign off. So now there could be inconsistencies between my risk assessment in the FSA and my risk response in the work program, and you need to go back and review your procedures. You could say relatively easy, clear the initials, go into the work program and let the optimizer do your work, but at least you get a very clear warning that, hey, there might be some inconsistencies, something has changed, you need to pay some more attention to this. Okay, just gonna go through my notes. Yep, I think we covered probably most of the highlights. So as a summary, what's really important: out of the box, we get the default procedure configuration. The optimizer will delete procedures if the risk is low or if an assertion is not relevant. The optimizer will insert procedures if the risk is high. The optimizer will also delete procedures if you have decided in your optimizer checklist that something is not relevant. Switching to the blank sheet approach, your default work program will have no procedures. If you created a risk and you link procedures to that risk, and then the work program will automatically insert those procedures. Then when you complete your risk assessment at the assertion level, that could also trigger the optimizer to bring in even more procedures. So the whole goal with the blank sheet approach is to start with nothing, make sure that the procedures that are in the work program really add value, really address the risks that are relevant, that are identified for your specific engagement. Okay, very good. Let's move on to the next video.